diversification, KDS, and outfield strategy. Justin Mason of the Sleeper and the Bus podcast joins us next on Beat the Shift. And welcome to another episode of the Beat the Shift podcast. I'm your host, Ariel Cohen, and with me as always, Ruven Guy. What's up, Ruven?
Not much. How are you doing today? How are you feeling?
Well, a little bit better. I feel a lot better. I don't sound as good. Sorry, guys, for no show last week. I didn't have any voice at all. I barely have a voice today, so I'm going to talk less. But hey, listen, we've got a fantastic guest, so he'll make up quite a bit of the talking for me. Welcome, Justin Mason. What's going on, Justin?
Nothing much, man. I'm glad you brought me in. Whenever you need someone to talk way too much, I'm the perfect person to bring on in because I will just yap nonstop.
Well, Justin does a fantastic job on the Sleeper and the Bus podcast that is up for an FSWA award. Congrats.
Thank you. It's always great
Very
to be
nice.
nominated.
Congrats.
Absolutely. All right, let's get right into it. And I'll try to talk a little bit less today as my voice is not great, but we'll give you great information as always. It's our outfield episode, so we'll do a little bit of strategy, and we'll talk a lot of outfielders. First of all, Justin, how many leagues do you actually play in?
So it's going to be less this year. This will probably be my lowest amount of leagues that I've played in since I've become a fantasy analyst. I'll probably be in somewhere in the single digits, maybe like 7 or 8. And for some people that's way too much. But for me, I've been playing in 15 to 30 leagues every year for the last decade or so. And due to a number of different circumstances, including wanting to have my sanity at the end of the season, I've decided I'm going to cut back drastically this year. So I'm really going to try to enjoy the leagues I have and not push myself to feel like I have to be in every league this year.
Well, fantastic. I'm in about 10 or 11, about 7 waiver wire leagues and 4 draft and holds. So, those are easier, a little bit less maintenance. What about you, Ruven?
I'm doing only like 6 or 7. I just can't stomach more. I actually, I have to work. I know you guys work also, but I have to work. And, you really know when you hit your limits for these leagues when you're spending so much time in the waiver wire and your other jobs, I don't say quote unquote suffer, like my paperwork falls behind because I'm looking at baseball stats. That's not the worst thing in the world because it'll get done eventually. But, you there is a limit as to how many leagues you should do because too many is not a good thing.
Talking about a strategy, is there such a thing as too many shares of a player?
I think yes. I think it depends on where you draft them, right? Like, I think if you've got a guy that you see as really, really undervalued that you can get in the last few rounds of a draft that's also easily droppable, then no, right? Like, if you've got a 29th round player that you think could turn into a stud, you should just put him on all your teams and hope that he hits. But if you're drafting the same guy in the first 5 to 10 rounds all the time, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure because anything happens to that guy and you're kind of screwed across all of your teams. So especially if you are a multi-leaguer like we all are, I would definitely diversify at the top.
No disagreement. Moving.
Yeah, I agree with that only because, when you look at the stats, when you wake up in the morning, look at the stats, you see the same player over and over again. Yes, first of all, you have to really like that player. If you don't like the player and you have so many shares of them, it's not going to be great, but usually you do if you're going to have that many shares. But when you have too many shares of one player, if one person goes down, like let's say a couple of years ago you had Acuna, he went down, forget it, your whole season's shot. A starting pitcher in the top 10, 15, he goes down, your pitching roster is shot. So if you go later on, like in the middle rounds, I think it's okay, and in the late rounds, I think you want to mix it up just a little bit, just so you can hit on that one breakout player. Because if you're the same players over and over again, especially at the bottom, then you really don't get a chance to get that breakout player.
So Ruven and I have drafted in a couple of auction leagues, and we had the same SP1. And we drafted again last night, and we said, you know what? Let's try not to draft that player. And I think the strategy is if we got a player at, I don't know, let's say $28, we would say, you know what? In order to draft this player for this next draft, it's got to be like $26. Like we need a much bigger bargain. Otherwise, we're just not going to take him because we wanted to diversify. I think that's the way to go at the top. And you're right, Justin. At the bottom, there's no issue. Just draft those guys. They're free. They're droppable. There's no cost for cutting them. Why not?
Yeah, and I mean, we saw this work out really, really well for like Phil Dussault the year he won the main event overall, and a bunch of other leagues, right? Like, I think he drafted Carlos Rodon in the 29th round, and that was the year Carlos Rodon just completely broke out. And so, like, he drafted him every league. It worked out, but if that player hadn't worked out, he could have easily dropped him. So for me, it's the kind of the cut line is where you'd be willing to cut a player instantaneously. That's where I would take a ton of shares on a guy.
Justin, what is KDS?
KDS is Kentucky Derby style drafting, and it is the best way to organize your draft. So for those who've never played on the NFBC, what they do is Kentucky Derby style drafting. You rank your options of where you want to draft in the first round, and then they pull a name out of the hat. That person gets their first choice, and you go down the line until everybody's chosen. But it gives you the opportunity. Like, let's say this is a year where you go, hey, I think there's 2 superstar players that I'd love to have at 1. But if I don't get them, the difference between the next 6 guys is really small. So maybe I'll set my KDS for 1, 2, 7. And that way, like, you have an earlier pick in the second round. Or maybe you like the back end of the draft this year. And you go, hey, I really like the back end, and I think I get 2 guys I love at pick 15 or 14. You might put those at the top of your KDS. So it's just a better overall way of drafting. And I know that not a lot of leagues, home leagues, do it. NFBC is really the main spot you see it. But I think people should kind of adopt it for their home leagues.
Yeah, there's really no reason not to. I mean, it's random to set it, so you might as well get a preference. Well, Justin, what are you setting for a KDS? Let's say you're in a 12-team league right now.
So I'm often setting for like right in the middle. So in a 12-team league, I'm looking at like 5, 6, 7. In a 15-team league, I kind of tend to look at like 7, 8, 9. That's mostly because I feel the most comfortable I'm not going to miss out on runs, especially with like the way the closer pool is this year, how many injuries we've already had. I'm not going to miss out on as many runs by drafting towards the middle as I might early on. But it's honestly not a bad year to draft anywhere, because I do think there are some pretty big drop-offs in talent between like the top 6 players and then the rest of the pool, and then the top like 20 to 25 players and the rest of the pool. So like I don't mind drafting kind of anywhere this year.
Ruben?
I like the middle of the draft always. I think any 6, 7, 8, I think is fine for me. Only because, not that I specifically want a player in that spot, but I want to be in the middle. I don't want to be in. I don't want to miss out on some runs. I don't want to miss out on a whole group of closers because I'm on one end of the draft or not the other. I like to be more in the middle so I can control my destiny a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm like that also. To me, it's not about a specific thing in a year, and it's not about the top 2, 3, 4 rounds. It's anywhere in the middle. I don't want to be that many picks without making a pick because I'm a value drafter. If I'm picking all the way at pick 15 in a 15-team league, if I want somebody who I think is going to go the next 2 rounds, I've got to reach 30 picks before a guy is taken. But if I'm in the middle, theoretically, it's only 15 picks. So I'm sort of giving 15 picks up of value by drafting at the end. I'll also say that it's there. You get more information if you're in the middle, right? It comes to your pick. You've got information. You make a pick. You go. When you're at the end, it comes to you. You still get one piece of information, and now you got to make 2 picks, right? The number of choices to information ratio is worse at the ends. It's better in the middle. So for people like me who want to have value, and also, just as you said, Justin, it stops runs. You're not going to get shut out if you're in the middle. You can see where you're going. For all those reasons, I like the middle, and that's what I set. I also prefer the beginning to the end this year. I think there's some good picks in the beginning, especially in 15-team leagues. I'd rather pick in the front than in the back, so I'm going to be sort of middle, a little bit to the left, to the front, more in the middle to the back, then all the way to the left, and then finally, I don't want picks number 13, 14, 15. Those are my choices. All right, we're going to talk a little bit of outfield today, and before we go into actual players, Justin, do you have any general outfield player pool observations for this coming season?
Outfield is a very deep position with massive drop offs in talent. And when I mean massive, I do actually mean like really really massive. Like there are really like three or four outfielders in a massive pool that like don't really have any red flags, and then there's red flags that start right away. Like obviously we lost Corbin Carroll, but Ronald Acuna Jr. is the third outfielder off the board, has major red flags. He's going pick 7 or 8 depending on your league. Guys like Pete Crow Armstrong, who's the ninth outfielder off the board, massive red flags. And so like I think it is a position that people often want to attack early and then kind of wait on. And I do actually kind of like that strategy, but I don't want to wait very long because it isn't too long before you start getting into a lot of these platoon issues, real skill issues. I mean, we have guys like Michael Harris II and O'Neal Cruz who are going in the top 25 of the outfield ranks and ADP. Like those guys have massive red flags, and in potential, O'Neal Cruz has potential platoon issues. That's top 25 outfielder according to NFBC ADP since the beginning of the year. So I think it's a position you want to be very aggressive on and really find where your best values sit.
The things I'll add is that in terms of 15-team auction value dollars, you find some low $40 players like Aaron Judge. You find a bunch of $30 or close to $30 players, and there's really not that many $20 players. Like from $20 to $27, you got about 3 different players according to ATC projections. To me, if you're playing in a snake draft, that means you really do want to pick an outfielder right away because it's very barren in the middle. If you don't get a top outfielder, you're going to have to get teens, like the values in 18, 19, 20 at the most. If you're in an auction, though, you can play it a little bit differently. You don't have to, you can throw around your money, but just know that you're really not going to be getting a $20 player. You either have to pay up for the 30 and overpay for the $30 ones, or you're going down to the teens. Ruven, do you agree?
Yeah, I agree with that. The only thing I'll add is that when you get to, let's say, the top 25 outfielders, there are a lot of them can be interchangeable. They have multiple ways to profit when you draft them. But once you get past that, once you're getting like, let's say, I don't know, around, let's say, pick around 30, where you're getting around the Joe Adell or Brenton Doyle or Stephen Kwan or that like that. A lot of those guys start to, maybe there are 1 or 2 categories as opposed to 3 or 4 categories. And then when you get to the very bottom, it gets very, very fringy, where you're getting guys who only really fill one category for you sometimes, with either just power or just speed or something like that. And you don't want to be playing at the bottom of the pool. If you play at the bottom of the pool and have to fill 3 outfield spots, it's very barren. And then when you have to look at the waiver wire gets even worse.
I'm going to also add that in 15-team leagues, I find that once you get to the $1, $2, and even $3 players this year, I'm finding more platoon players than in the past. Last year, I found that you can get regular playing time players who are decent at the $1 level. I don't see that now. I think you have to go at least $3 or that kind of level to get regular full playing time players. Anything else to add, Justin? Anything to disagree with?
No, I think you guys absolutely nailed it. I think especially this year we're seeing a lot more platoon players. The other thing I'll say is like early on in the draft, a lot of the outfielders are not guys who are multi-positional eligible, which is something a little bit new. Only 2 players in the top 25 of the ADP are multi-positional eligible at a different position other than outfield. But as you go, that becomes more and more of a problem. And so while it seems fairly deep, a lot of those players are going to get pulled from kind of the pool in your draft in order to fill second, third, shortstop, other positions like that.
A good observation. Ruven, go to you first. Are there specific stats that you need to get from the outfield position this year?
Yes, I think there are. For outfield, I think you're looking for home runs. At the top, you get stolen bases, you get runs. RBIs, not so much, but I think home runs, and stolen bases, especially when you get the guys at the top, you should be getting a lot of stolen bases. You should get stolen bases out of, let's say, an Acuna or a Tatis or a Carroll. You want the stolen bases. Carroll's a different story because of the injury, so you may not get the power, but, you're looking for power from those guys also. So, yeah, I think those are the main things, you can get some batting average from these guys, I guess, but mainly you're looking for speed and power.
Do you agree, Justin?
I think outfield is actually kind of a position where you can really offset whatever your strategy is at the other positions, right? Like you can find power in the outfield, you can find batting average, you can find speed. You can kind of use it as the way of finishing out your puzzle. You know, one of the things I like to say about, every draft or auction is just a different puzzle that you're putting together, and you can kind of put it together whatever way you want, especially if you're in an auction league. And the outfield is like the perfect place to be like, okay, I took power with my first baseman, or I took speed with my second baseman. I can now offset that. I do think if you're going to attack outfield early, you need to attack the power, because the power in the outfield comes with such a huge deficit later in other categories. So like if you take a guy who has power later, it's usually going to hurt your batting average quite a bit, or he's going to come with zero speed. So if you are attacking outfield early, you really want to attack those guys who give you a good power base and a good average base, because those are hard things to find later on that don't hurt you in other categories.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I do think that the other positions are more specific on the categories, and the outfield is less specific. And I also agree that your earlier outfield picks should prioritize power over other stuff. I agree with that. Justin, last question about outfield, and we usually talk here in the show about 5 outfielder leagues, just as the general format. But a lot of people play in 3 outfielder leagues. What is the difference between them procedurally?
I mean, you're just going to be drafting a whole lot less players at that position, right? So in a 5 outfielder, league, let's say a 10-team league, you're going to be, each team is drafting 50 outfielders. Well, in a 3 outfielder league, if you're on Yahoo and you're playing a 3 outfielder league, you're only drafting 30. And so, like, those huge drop-offs in talent, they're still there, but it's not as sharp, because there's going to be a heck of a lot more guys on the waiver wire who can actually be impactful and will be impactful during the season. It's actually a position I don't worry about nearly as much in those 3 outfielder leagues as opposed to the 5. The 5, especially those 5 outfielder 15 teamers, it becomes really thin. Like what you were saying in terms of like later on, you're gonna have a hard time finding guys who don't either have massive red flags or massive platoon issues. And so for me, like, if the deeper the league, and that can be size of the league itself or how many outfield positions you have, the more I'm going to want to attack that outfield position.
Yeah, way lower priority in 3. Ruven, you agree?
Yeah, and not only that, you're not going to be shut out of a top outfielder, because you can almost guarantee yourself at least one top outfielder in the 3 outfield league. You can at least one top outfielder, maybe even 2, and then you can supplement the rest of your team based on your outfield.
All right, let's talk ATC undervalued players in the outfield. We did a shorter strategy section today because obviously outfield has a ton of players. And the number one undervalued guy, or I say not number one, the top player that I find early on that is undervalued, that I'm finding myself gravitating towards, is Brent Rooker. Brent Rooker is one of those guys who I said, hey, there's not a lot of $20 players. Well, he fits right around there. We're talking about a 4th round value. It's about $24 auction equivalent. And his ADP is roughly around where the ATC value is, which is not the case with other outfielders. Other outfielders you got to pay a premium for. So from that standpoint, it makes it interesting. He's the best relative bargain of the top, 15 outfielders or so. He's a big power bat. I think we've seen his upside in 2024, which is a $30 player. Now, you're not going to get there. He's not going to bat 290 again. But will he get into the 30s in homers? Yeah, likely. Can he get close to 100 RBIs? Sure. I think it's a pretty high floor player at a premium position that you're getting at a reasonable price. What are your thoughts, Justin?
Honestly, I feel like ATC is a little low on him, at least from the power perspective. 33 home runs to me seems a little bit light. And I know he only hit 30 last year, but he's got another year now acclimated in this new park in Sacramento that is just a home run hitter's haven. And what he's done over the course of his career, really, but especially over the last few years, is really just become a better pure hitter. In 2023, Brent Rooker had like a 79% zone contact rate, which is not just well below league average, it's like below the level you want from a major league player. That kind of number is something where you go, hey, I don't know if this guy's actually going to stick in the majors. He's improved that all the way up to 83% last year, without sacrificing the power metrics at the same time. So typically when guys like really try to improve those contact skills, they're doing it at the kind of expense of power. That hasn't been the issue for Brent Rooker. And it's really shown me that I think this guy could be just he's probably going to hit 260 like he did last year, hit 262. But like I do think there is 40 home run potential in this bat, and maybe even room for more. And the A's are getting better around him. So I think the runs and RBIs will trend up. As this team gets better around him. So I really like Brent Rooker. I agree. I think he is one of the most underrated players this year.
Yep, he's a 3.7 dimensional player because he steals a little bit also. So he's not deficient anywhere really. Move in.
Yeah, I want to add a couple of stats that when I did a deep dive on him. His home run to fly ball rate went down last year, which is very interesting. He was able to 30 home runs, but last year he hit more home runs on the road than at home, which is interesting for where the Athletics are playing. And the first half of the season, he had 20 home runs, batted 279. Second half, he only had 10 home runs, batting only 236. So was there something going on? Was he playing a little beat up second half of the season that we didn't know about? And the fact that he hit more home runs on the road than at home last year, if he can figure out how to hit in that ballpark, then he has a possible 35, even 40 home run potential.
All right, so we got 3 thumbs up for Rooker. The next player is George Springer. I owned George Springer on almost every single team last year. He was like ATC's biggest bargain. He's still a minor bargain right now. I mean, George Springer, the story, and here's the very quick, simple analysis. We know his skills. He's getting older. Is he going to make up the playing time? He's a small old bargain for an old veteran. I personally find myself not taking him in drafts because it's not big enough of a bargain for me, and I am a little bit worried that he'll break down. So I'm shying away from him. But, if his price drops another dollar or two or a couple more rounds, I'd take him. Again, I don't love the guy for the price. Again, it's just a worry about playing time because I think we know what his skills are. Justin?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a decent bargain right now, like you said. I wonder if he's going to be a bigger bargain when we start getting into auction rooms. Because this feels like the type of player that people don't want to go very many dollars on, and I think you're going to find out that he ends up being a better bargain in an auction league than he is at the Snake League. I think a lot of people are really afraid of the health, right? And for good reason. He had a number of years in his past where he really struggled to get over 140 games. However, the last 3 seasons, he's had 140 games or more. Last 4 seasons, he's had 583 plate appearances or more in each season. He showed a ton of power. The contact skills are still good. That team is going to be really good around him. The Blue Jays actually do a really good job of managing him to kind of give him extra days off to make sure he is healthy. There is risk, but I think that it's kind of baked in a little bit into the price. So I do like George Springer this year.
Is he going to steal more than 15 bases, Justin?
I mean, he has in each of the last 3 years, and the Blue Jays aren't a team that run very much, so I don't have any reason to think that he won't. I don't know that I would project him for much more than 15, because you want to kind of be on the conservative side of your projections in that regard. But yeah, I think 14, 15, 16 stolen bases is kind of what you're looking at.
Okay, moving.
Yeah, I tend to agree on this. Well, the most telling thing was that the Blue Jays made a trade to get Jesus Sanchez. He's going to play the outfield, which means that George Springer is going to DH more. If he DHs more, he'll probably be able to stay on the field a little bit more, and that helps being he's going into his age 36 season. You never know when the drop-off is going to be. But if he DHs more and he doesn't have to play the outfield as much, that will help. I mean, last year, his BABIP was a little lucky last year, but he also had the highest hard hit rate of his percentage of his career for a season last year. So, he's getting, it seems like his metrics are getting better, and if they can keep him healthy, I mean, when he was DHing in the playoffs, he hit. He was still able to hit. There was no drop off when he wasn't, playing the field. So because the Blue Jays did get another outfielder, and I think they're going to try to keep Springer off his legs a little bit more, I think you can actually buy into this bargain.
I mean, if he was 33 years old or less, and he had a $30 season last year, his price would be even higher than this. To me, it's just people a little bit worried about his health, like I am. So he just turns into a small bargain. Again, to me, if he drops another round, I'm comfortable with taking him. I just, need a little bit more of a bargain than he's currently going for.
So
For me
you'd
to
be
really.
more okay taking him in an auction setting as opposed to like a draft?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Correct. Teoscar Hernandez, another old skill guy that ATC sees as a bargain, even more of a bargain. I find myself not taking him. I just haven't yet, but there's nothing that scares me about him other than the playing time. Now, here it's a combination of health, but a combination of the Dodgers are going to sit people. They just are. They're an old team. They're going to sit people. He had 511 at-bats last year. I don't know. ATC has him for 500 at-bats. I think I would take the under. Now, he still could be a bargain even with it. He still, I think, will get, close to about 25 homers. Should be able to knock in a lot of runs. I mean, Dodgers are going to set him up for success. So, to me, it's one of the guys that you put in as acceptable to get. If he goes a little bit cheaper, then you pounce on him. That's how I would play him. Justin?
I mean, here's the thing. You want a piece of this Dodgers lineup. And I know you said that the Dodgers will sit him. They actually don't really sit. They don't really play like the resting game with a lot of their hitters. They kind of let their hitters go. The reason why some Dodgers hitters have fewer plate appearances, it's because they've been injured. And Teoscar's one of those guys who's kind of had these nagging injuries in the majority of his career. He's had these kind of things that just pop up. They don't cost him a ton of time, but 5 games here, 10 games here type thing. But for the most part, he tends to play, and I think he will play kind of regularly as long as he is healthy. I think the health is that question mark, though. Can he stay on the field for 150 games? I don't know that I would project that, but I do think that he is an affordable part of the Dodgers lineup, and you want that. And there are a few affordable pieces of the Dodgers lineup. I love Max Muncy this year at his price. And so, any chance I can get to kind of dip into the best team in baseball at an affordable price, I'm going to.
So let's talk a little bit about the Dodgers. Will Smith is going to sit more, but it's a little bit different because he's a catcher.
Yeah,
he can sit more.
Yeah, Will Smith's problem has nothing to do with Will Smith. It has everything to do with Shohei Ohtani and Freddie Freeman, right? Because he has no way of getting those extra plate appearances at DH or first base, because those guys are manning it down. But Teoscar is still just going to play in the outfield.
Can't DH him. Can't DH anybody else. You got
That's a
time.
problem.
That's a huge problem. You see, looking at the Dodgers lineup, the ages for the players from 1 to 9, 32, 33, 29, 36 going on 37, 31, 36, 33, 25, 27. That's Andy Pajas and Hyun-Sung Kim at the bottom there. That's not a young lineup. So and if you look at their bench right now, there's really no one to replace him in the outfield. You have Alex Cole. He's a spot player here and there, but I don't think anything else than that. And Teoscar hasn't hit less than 25 home runs in a full season since 2018. Last year, his BABIP was 40 points below his career average, and he only played 134 games last year. So he played 154 the year before. I don't think there's going to be that much of a drop off. I think you can expect 25 home runs from him, I think he's a good bargain. I myself also, I don't have any shares of him yet, but I'm not afraid to take him because of his age. I don't think he's at the point where I'm nervous at the age as like a George Springer.
Yeah, I just group him in a spot of acceptable people to draft. I haven't actually drafted him, but he's totally acceptable. I mean, just like Springer, we know what his skills are. We just know it. It's just a question of will he stay healthy? But, it's true for anybody. People can get hurt. So if you're buying a player at a $4 discount, if they're hurt for a month, well, that's the $4. You're still getting the great value the rest of the way. That's how I see it. Seiya Suzuki. He's on this list every year. I don't understand. Every single year, the guy turns in a $17 season, a $19 season, a $15 season, and yet people are afraid to draft him. He's slipping in some drafts in 8th round, 9th round I've seen. The dude hits 20, 30 homers. He steals some. He's good high average, knocks and runs. I mean, he gets you something of everything, and he's always a value. Justin, why aren't people drafting Seiya, and can you explain this?
I really can't, especially coming off of his best season in the majors, right? 32 homers, 103 RBIs. Yeah, the batting average was down, but so was the BABIP. His 288 or 282 BABIP. last year, which is well below his career BABIP of 329. I just think he's a really, really good hitter, and when he's healthy, yeah, he does deal with some injury issues every once in a while, but he's also DHing 100 games out of the year, so like that should keep him on the field more often than not. I think he's gonna kind of repeat very similar numbers to what we saw last year. So yeah, I do think he's a bargain, and like I said, he is a bargain every year.
Yep. You disagree with it?
A little bit on only this because second half of last year he batted 213 with only 7 home runs. He's pulling the ball more, but he only hit one opposite field home run all year last year, which is just an interesting stat. And he still can't really hit lefties. He's batting 237. But if you believe in this, he's in his walk year. So he's playing for a new contract next year. So if you believe in the fact that he's playing for a new contract, he may be a bigger bargain.
I'm totally comfortable taking anybody we've said so far. I'm thumbs up on all of them. Again, I'm not, unlike some of the other positions that we've covered where I'm like, oh my God, these are tremendous bargains. These are all small-ish bargains, so these are all acceptable people. All right, now we're back to the Dodgers for this next one. Andy Pages. For me, I can't fathom this one. And we've been in a bunch of auctions, and I bought him for like $9 in an auction. The guy was a $20 player last year. He hit 27 homers, 14 stolen bases, 272 average. He's going to play a lot. Great fielder. As we said, they've got a very older team. He's 25 years old. He's going to stay in the lineup. ATC has him for 526 at-bats. I actually do not agree with that. I think that it's way under projecting him. He had 581 last year. So ATC is a huge bargain at this price with only 526 at-bats. I can't understand this. And in terms of ATC volatility metrics, he's got a plus 2.4 skew, which was tremendous. So his risk-adjusted price, if I do the math, is like $2.50 on top of that. He's worth, risk-adjusted, about $17. And he's a 5-category player pretty much. I don't get this one. To me, this is a can't-miss guy to draft. Plays in a great lineup, so the runs and RBIs will be there. He's gonna play all the time. Like, is there any red flag, Ruvain? Like, what am I missing?
I don't think you're missing anything. I mean, he hit for average against left-handers. He hit for power against right-handers. 24 of his 27 homers against right-handers. And if you play him at home, he hit 19 of his home runs and batted 325 at home. Not as good as away, 8 home runs and batted 221, but his walk rate was only 4.6, which means he puts the ball in play, which is very important. And he's like sort of a little bit of a unicorn in that he decreased his launch angle and he found more power with it, which is very interesting. And the fact that he's the youngest guy in that lineup makes me think that he's going to play the most games in the outfield for the Dodgers this year.
Yeah, it's the at-bats to me that I think ATC's even under-projecting. What do you think, Justin?
Oh, I really like Paez, and again, you want an affordable part of this Dodgers lineup. I do see some red flags in terms of like he's not a guy who strikes the ball particularly hard, right? So you like open up his Savant page, and his hard hit rate is 24th percentile. His barrel rate is 45th percentile. His average exit velocity 28th percentile. Like he isn't a guy who is going to crush the ball consistently. What he does do is make a lot of in-zone contact and have a really good launch angle sweet spot, which I think kind of helps, especially in that home park, which is a good place to hit, kind of helps offset it. I could see like a dip in power this year for Paez. And so like I don't know that I would project him to come close to what we saw in terms of the 27 homers last year. But I think he'll maintain that batting average. He's in a good park. He's going to steal some bases, too. I do like the price. Maybe not quite as high as you are, Ariel, but I think he is a bargain.
Do you agree with me that the 525 at-bats are low?
I think it is probably a little bit low, but not very low. I think one of the problems with Paez is playing on the Dodgers. He's just never going to hit high in the lineup.
Yeah, he'll bat 9th or something.
Yeah, he's gonna bat 8th a lot of the time, and
that doesn't matter. He turns the lineup over. If you turn the lineup over, then he's got Ohtani when he's on base.
I mean that's helpful, but you're just not going to get as many plate appearances batting 8th consistently, even on a really good team. So, like, I think that kind of limits the upside a little bit. Now, again, this is a really old team. And you have a number of guys with injury issues. I could see Pages work himself up the lineup as the season goes on. But there is, like, some plate appearance risk just because you're batting 8th.
Okay, but at the price right now, we're
I'm
talking
fine
10th,
with it.
11th round. That's still good
Yeah.
for you, right?
Yeah, totally fine.
Okay.
I think I would probably take him over Teoscar, who's going right around the same spot.
Okay, that's fair.
I tend to agree with that.
Okay, the next player has been on a list for another 3 years in a row. I can't see this one why people are off of him. It's Taylor Ward. Taylor Ward just hit 36 homers, yet from year to year, his ADP went down or at par value or something like that. He's going, again, right around where Pages is, like 11th, 12th round. The dude hit 36 homers, 103 RBIs last year. Now he goes to a better lineup in a better park. He was a $17 player last year. He's been a $17 player, $13 player, $16 player a couple years back. Yet he's going for $9. I don't understand this one. If you need power, which you can never have enough power, why aren't people? What is the red flag with Taylor Ward that people are not buying him yet again? Justin?
I think the big issue with Taylor Ward is the past health issues. Yes, last season he was able to play in 157 games. He played 156 games in 2024. But prior to that, he really, really struggled with staying on the field.
That's 2 years in a row. That's enough.
I agree, but I think that is kind of where people are a little scared. I also think people are like looking at like what Camden had been before they moved the fences in a little bit, and are maybe a little scared that power dries up. I'm not super scared by that. I think the park will play just fine for his kind of power. And if you look at the X home runs on Savant, his X home runs in Baltimore is higher than it would have been just in Anaheim itself. So I do kind of think he is a little bit undervalued here, and maybe people are. I don't know why they're running so far away from him. You know, he's probably not going to hit 36, but
No.
like I think he's a good bet for 27 to 30.
I mean, ATC has him at 27, and if he only had 24, he'd still be a bargain. I don't get it. Or maybe people looking at the fact that he had a 228 batting average last year, but he did have a 257 BABIP, so that was unlucky. I'm not saying that he's going to bounce back to more, but it'll get more like 245, 250.
And the fact he has more last year, he hit more homers again on the road than at home last year. I know it's not great to hit in Anaheim, but still he had more homers on the road and he hit better against lefties. And I guess watch out, Carlos Rodon and Max Fried. So he's better against lefties. And when he plays more than 130 games, he'll give you 23 or more home runs per year. He's been pulling the ball more and going to Baltimore. If he can figure out how to hit it down that line and not have to worry about the main left center field area, then he should be perfectly fine. If anything, he can match the 36 that he hit last year.
11% walk rate last year. I can't see this one. He's on the ATC list again. I'm gonna own him again in a lot of places. I already do. If you need power late, which everybody does, I mean 12th round, I can't see the reason why not to pull the trigger. Okay, here's another player that Justin is more familiar with because he's from San Francisco. It's Heliot Ramos, and Justin is in the San Francisco area, so maybe you can talk about him.
Yeah, I'm not a big believer in Ramos. I think he kind of is who he is at this point, which is a guy who's going to hit low 20s homers, deliver kind of a mediocre batting average, hit kind of the middle of back end of that Giants lineup, especially with some of their additions. It's just kind of a boring profile. And like, I like those guys in deeper leagues when you're not paying very much of a very high price for him, and he is going at like pick 210 right now, so like that seems fine. But I do think that people remember a little bit of his prospect pedigree and think, oh, this guy, at one point was like a top 100 prospect. He's, finally getting, full-time playing time in San Francisco. Had almost 700 plate appearances last year. I would not bank on him for that many plate appearances. I think he's going to hit too low in the order to kind of duplicate that. And I think ultimately he's also a bad defensive player, so I think he's going to lose plate appearances in the back end of games as they bring in a better defender. So I mean, he's fine, but like he's nothing that I'm jumping for joy over.
Yeah, I mean the playing time is going to really drop from last year. It might even drop 100 at bats or 100 plate appearances.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
the
he,
big
he
thing.
did go from being a platoon player to getting, full-time batting, and he basically matched what he did the year before with more at bats. So, he's like you said, more like a boring player. Last 2 years, almost identical, 21, 22 home runs, 6 stolen bases. He had a worse home run to fly ball rate last year, and batting lower in the lineup. I mean, that lineup is, I guess you could say it's top heavy. And then once you get to the bottom, I'm a little nervous with him even being able to score, even if he gets on base. He doesn't give you that much speed, so I'm not really looking at that for him. If he was still batting leadoff, I'd have a little bit more interest, but lower in the lineup, I don't know how much interest I have in him.
I'm more inclined to take him in an auction than a draft. In a draft, I'm doing other things at that time. He's not as interesting there. In an auction, if the price point is right, late in the draft, he goes for $4 or whatever. Sure. I'm fine with that. Again, caution about the playing time. It's going to drop from last year. Okay. Then this next guy, Brian Reynolds from Pittsburgh. He was on this list every year. ATC used to love him. I used to love him. I used to buy him every year all over the place. Even though he's a small bargain, according to ATC, I can't get myself to purchase him at all. The question was last year a fluke? Because he was an $18 player or more for each of the prior 4 years. He obviously gets a lot of playing time, but the homers have just tanked. He was always a good first-half player. That tanked. The homers tanked. The steals went to almost nothing. The batting average tanked. I mean, he was garbage last year. He was just a value drain. I can't get myself to believe in him again. Justin, can you convince me otherwise, or is my caution just worthy this year, and are we just totally off of Brian Reynolds again?
Yeah, Brian Reynolds has a very similar problem to Elliot Ramos, and that is, while there is like some thump in the bat, he really doesn't elevate the ball enough to make it work in his favor, especially in PNC Park, right? When you're a guy who has a 7-degree launch angle, the ball is just not going to get over the fence that much, and you're going to run into a lot of balls like falling at the warning track, or maybe you get a good amount of doubles, but they're not really going to turn into home runs. We saw last year with 38 doubles. That's great if you're in like a points league and doubles matter, but for those of us who play in Roto, like that just really isn't super enticing. I do like what the Pirates are doing in terms of adding talent around to this team, but it's still not like a talent-rich lineup at this point. So you're still looking at an accumulator's profile. I'm not like super enthused. I'm also not like running away from Brian Reynolds. The problem is, like, around the place that Reynolds goes, there are some people with some really interesting upside, and often my team is already very stable by the time I get to pick 200, and I'm looking for maybe some, upside, plays in Addison Barger or Trout. Like, you're getting Mike Trout at, pick 183, and I'm probably going to pass up on Reynolds for, that kind of upside. It may be a mistake, but, you're not having to pay the top price for it anymore. So I just don't end up with Brian Reynolds as much anymore.
So was he lucky in prior years? Like, I'm trying to think of what has changed from 2 years ago to last year to now.
Well, actually,
his launch angle
has gotten worse every year.
Okay.
For like the past couple of years. His home run to fly ball rate has gone down every year, and he only had 5 stolen base attempts last year. So he's not getting the 10 to 12 stolen bases like he used to. He's not hitting home runs, and he's still batting third in that lineup, which is not the best to begin with. So you put all those together, that's the trend that I'm seeing, and that's why I'm staying away from him.
Okay, so it looks like the ATC projections here are sort of more historical based that, 2 years ago, great, 3 years ago, great on the surface, but the underlying skills trend down. Sure, last year was a down year, so projections are down from prior years, but trend goes down and probably not even worth the ATC price. Is that the consensus here?
Unless we see something in spring, right? Like, if all of a sudden we're hearing, hey, Brian Reynolds reworked his swing so that way he can get a little bit more loft. He had a 28% fly ball percentage last year. When you're hitting the ball in the ground that much, especially in PNC, you're just not going to hit for enough power. And so, like, unless we see something that is tangible in spring training, I'm probably just not very interested.
Okay, I agree. I
I agree.
Okay, before we go to the next player, it's time for the Injury Gurus Trivia of the Week.
So the next player we're going to be talking about is Chandler Simpson. Chandler Simpson stole 44 bases last year, which would have tied him with Jose Ramirez for the MLB lead last year, but didn't have enough at-bats to qualify. Can either of you name the last two players to lead the majors in stolen bases in back-to-back seasons?
Well, hold on a second. Before you answer, first of all, do you actually have to qualify for at-bats to actually lead the league in stolen bases? I don't think you do.
I think so, but I mean he still was tied for the most stolen bases, so I'm technically putting him in there.
Okay.
If some lists have Jose Ramirez being the top guy and Chandler Simpson's not even on the list because they don't have enough at bats, but I'm just saying he was tied. Hypothetically, he was not hypothetically, he was tied for the most stolen bases for last year for the major league lead. Can you name the two players who have led the majors in back-to-back seasons? The last two players who led the majors in stolen bases in back-to-back seasons.
All right, Justin?
I mean, this makes me feel like this is going to be like an older school player that it just hasn't happened in a while.
You got it.
I'm going to throw out some older school names and see if I get lucky.
Okay.
You guys are Mets fans. Jose Reyes?
Jose Reyes is one of them. 2006, 2007.
Okay.
He led the majors in stolen bases. But there was someone else in the teens, in the 20 teens, who did it.
I mean, is it like D. Gordon?
Wow, 2 for 2. I didn't think you were going to
Hey.
get that. D. Strange Gordon led in 2014 and 2015. He led the majors in stolen bases. Now, the reason why I bring that up
Nice
is
job,
if
by the
Chandler
way.
Simpson
Nice
did,
job.
Yeah, that was great. I didn't think you were going to get that. If Chandler
You have no
Simpson led
confidence
the
in
league in stolen
Justin?
bases this year,
Did you not see me? Did you not see me at Arizona Fall League win Family Feud?
We were there.
I mean,
yeah, we saw that.
I
That's why I
dominated
made the-
Family Feud.
But by the way, sorry, we have to go on a tangent on this one. If you guys listening have never been to the to First Pitch Arizona, I have to say the new Family Feud that's put on
It was so much fun.
is fantastic. I'm not gonna say the highlight of the program because there's so many highlights, but it's a top 3 highlight for sure. You keep laughing. It's interesting. It's an amazing Saturday night event. I wouldn't miss that. And Justin was one of the winners for the for the show. It was great, right?
It was really good.
It was really fun. Sam Wershing did a really, really good job, and all of his guys. I know he has a lot of guys helping him for that. Did a really great job. If you've never been to First Pitch Arizona, you have to go. It's like the best weekend of the year. It's right up there with Tout Wars for me as like the 2 best baseball weekends, where we just hang out for 4 or 5 days, talking baseball, and having a lot of fun. If you've never been, it is well worth the money to make a trip out to Arizona in the fall.
I mean, Saturday night we got the home run derby in which I caught a ball, and then we go right to the Family Feud. I mean, it was a hell of an evening.
Plus we have the wiffle ball game.
Wiffle ball game, yes, we did the wiffle ball game, and then we played some poker after. I mean, it was just nonstop fun. So yeah, an advertisement. I mean, got a couple of months to go for that, but definitely go to that. All right,
Start
sorry.
saving your pennies now, right? Like,
Yes.
Yeah, right.
put away, $20 a paycheck from now until November, and you'll have plenty of money to go out and have a really great time.
Well, is it worth saving your pennies to spend on Chandler Simpson then? Should you buy him and think he's going to be the next player to go back-to-back seasons with stolen base, being the major league leader in stolen bases? Last year, his BABIP was the lowest of his career at any level. I think the main thing that we're all concerned about is his playing time. So, Justin, what do you think? Do you think he has a chance to be the next back-to-back MLB steals leader?
Does he have a chance? Absolutely. Like, I mean,
Okay, will he get a chance?
I
That's
think
the
he
question.
will get a chance. Is he actually going to do it? I would not bet on it. I mean, we saw them send him down in season last year, right? And I think we have to remember that while stolen bases are a really, really important statistic for us as fantasy players, they're not really an important statistic or as important of a statistic for real life baseball teams. And Chandler Simpson, in spite of all of his speed, is a bad defender. Remember, like, oh God, who was the guy who was like super, super fast, but just like terrible in the outfield? I'm blanking on his name from a few years ago. Like, just because you're fast doesn't mean you're actually a good defender in the outfield. And Chandler
You're not talking
Simpson,
about Billy Hamilton, right?
No, Hamilton was a great defender.
He was a very good outfielder. He had speed.
It'll come to me, like, I'm sure, as soon as we finish the topic. But the problem is, like, he's gonna probably start on a strong side platoon. Tampa Bay brought in a lot of outfielders, and while I think they're like, I think I have him projected for 40 stolen bases or so, like, there's a lot of risk, and he really doesn't do anything else. So putting him on your team offers really odd team construction issues to begin with. And then if you were to lose him, if you were to pull a hamstring, if he were to get sent back down because he's so bad defensively, the Rays can't continue to run him out in the outfield, and he doesn't make sense as a designated hitter type player, like, you're putting a lot of your stolen base eggs into one basket. And so, like, this is a guy I'm never drafting.
He had 26 RBIs last year. I mean, 0 home runs. I mean, that's like a negative if you're rostering him, and you have to spend a 12th round pick on him. It's a roster construction problem. I gotta tell you, Justin, I'm actually really surprised he's even on this list. I had absolutely no inkling that he would actually say that ATC would say he's a bargain. But it's just the expected stolen base amount, because his upside, to be frank, is 89. I'm going to say 80-90 stolen bases potentially.
He stole 104 in the minors in 2024. Like, if he finds 600 plate appearances, right? Like, I don't know if they still have. Oh, they do still have the Steamer 600 up, right? So if I go over to the Steamer 600 and I just sort by, they say 600 plate appearances, he will get 55 stolen bases. Like, I feel like that's light.
Yeah.
If Chandler Simpson gets 600 plate appearances, I could see him stealing 70, 80 bases.
Steamer, by the way, is the lightest projection on stolen bases of anyone, which is
also he's not really a guy you draft and say, okay, you know what, I'm going to forget about stolen bases now, because you can't. And if you're doing that, then why are you drafting him?
Exactly. He just, because he's going to offer 0 power, he's going to offer very few RBIs and really not that many runs. Like, it's really you're getting batting average from a guy who may not be able to accumulate to make that good batting average matter. And then a ton of stolen bases. But like I said, all it takes is a pulled hamstring, and now you're searching for 40 stolen bases off the wire. And that becomes really, really difficult, especially when he was already giving you negatives in other categories.
So I just did a mock draft today in which I drafted Aaron Judge, Cal Raleigh, and Eugenio Suarez. I guess that would fit that construction, maybe?
It fits it if you can guarantee he's going to be on the field and get you those 40 stolen bases, right?
If he does not actually stay on the field and you're expecting to get 40-ish stolen bases, you've got a massive hole right there if he's not there. It's the risk of his underperformance or non-performance that makes him there. And if you look at his metrics, he's a 1.5 dimensional player. One-dimensional guy. He's got a negative skew. His risk-adjusted price is several dollars lower because it's a tremendous risk to take him. I won't be drafting him. Now, the only thing I'll throw out there, Justin, is if you're in a 10-team mixed league that has, a little bit more shallow, and he would end up being like a fringe last player on the roster, so he would only be worth like $1 or $2. Maybe in that scenario, it's worth to take a gamble for the upside of the 80 stolen bases, because then he's more free. So if you have to cut him, no biggie. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, I think in a 10 or a 12 team like head-to-head categories league, that makes a lot of sense. Right. Because like he could single-handedly win you the stolen base category multiple weeks.
Right.
Like that's the kind of place where I'm taking the gamble.
But if you have Xavier Edwards going 8 picks after him, why are you not taking Xavier Edwards instead?
I'm taking Xavier Edwards every time.
Sure.
Exactly.
Like the ADP does not make sense for him.
Right.
There's just like there are guys who can steal 40 bases going after him, and have really concrete roles. I don't see a world in which I'm super interested in drafting Chandler Simpson.
All right, we got a couple more players. Let's go to a couple of Rockies in a row. Mickey Moniak. I have him worth $10 according to ATC, and he's going for like $3. 17th round, so he's affordable. He was a $13 player last year. He's going to bat high up in the lineup. The problem with Mickey Moniak, he's got very bad splits. He's very bad against lefties. He had a 54 WRC plus against lefties, 119 against righties, so great bat versus righties, but pathetic versus lefties. And he's got a very, very large home road split, 130 WRC plus at home, only 83 on the road. So to me, Mickey Moniak, if you're in a league that has daily lineups, he's well worth it. I mean, he's going to be like a number 4 type outfielder in one of those daily leagues. If you're playing in the NFBC where you can set your lineup twice a week, to me that's actually a good advantage because you can take him out for a series that he's facing 2 lefties or away or whatever. And again, you're drafting him for like $2, so he's your 5th outfielder, so he's a low cost, so you might have a bench guy that you can slot in instead. So in that kind of format, he's fine. But, nevertheless, he's a $6 bargain. He's almost a $10 player. So I find myself drafting him despite him being a platoon player, which I told everybody at the start of the show, you're going to find that anyways at the $1, $2 level in drafts. So for me, Mickey Moniak is a buy, and he does have upside. I mean, he was a $13 player last year, and he's back in the same situation for a whole year once again with some added support. I think the team is better and healthier than it was last year. So he might even be better.
That's not saying much.
It's a low bar, but I would say that like a few years ago I said like, hey, White Sox fans, I know it's going to be ugly for a while, but I do like the direction the White Sox organization is going. Right, they're committing to being bad so that way they can rebuild the farm and be good eventually, right? And we're starting to see some of the fruit of that White Sox. And I do think the Rockies are finally committing to just being bad and rebuilding the organization from, the bottom
Didn't they
up.
just sign Moneyball guy to be their GM?
Yeah. So like I think they're like I do think they're heading in the right they're heading in the right direction, and this lineup isn't good, but it's interesting. Like it's going to be a fun lineup to watch. The pitching staff is going to be truly terrible. Like it's going to be just absolutely terrible. But the lineup's going to be fun. And so like Mickey Moniak, like he is in that area that we've been talking about like kind of the whole episode where it's like, hey, you're going to see a lot of platoon players and a lot of guys with massive red flags in this area, but he plays in Colorado. You'll know when to kind of utilize him and when not to. Like you said, you're not playing him against left-handed pitching. You're not playing him on the road. That can be a little bit difficult to manage. So if you're the type of fantasy player who wants to like set and forget, Mickey Moniak is not for you. But he has made pretty stark improvements in terms of zone contact over the course of the last 3 seasons. In 2023, it was 76%. 2024 was 81%. And last year was right around league average at 85% zone contact. Now, he does swing outside of the zone too much. I think that strikeout rate will go back up because the swing and strike rate was still at like 15% last year. But I think he's going to offer, like a 240 to 250 batting average with 25 bombs and, a handful of stolen bases. So, like, I think it'll be a decent line for a guy like Mickey Moniak.
All right, so since you mentioned the Rockies rotation, who is, according to ATC, who is their best pitcher of the starting staff, and what is his respective auction value equivalent?
Oh God. I mean, I guess it's Kyle Freeland, and he's $1.
No, it's not $1. It's going to be negative.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, I didn't think we were going negative numbers, so I was still trying to give him at least $1.
No. Negative what? And it's not Kyle Freeland. It's actually Tomoyuki Sugano. And what is his negative? What is his negative value?
-6.
Ruvain, you want to guess?
It's probably -12.
Oh,
But
God.
but but
Sagano is a
Add,
nightmare in that
add the
park.
two together. Negative
Jesus.
16 is their best pitcher.
but you know what? They did sign Jose Quintana, who I actually would
Negative
consider
17.
streaming if he's away from Coors Field. So that's actually a picture I may pick up during the season for like a two-start away thing for Colorado. So it's not all bad, I guess.
I said this on the podcast yesterday, on the Sleeper on the Bus yesterday, because we talked about both the Quintana and the Sagano signings. These are the guys you want in dynasty leagues where you're rebuilding and you have an innings minimum you've got to reach to not ruin your draft picks, because you want to like have really bad ratios so you're down low in the standings, but you have to get to a certain threshold of innings. Like, go for Rockies pitchers there. They should not be rostered in any other format.
I think I'm in a draft champions, and I'm in like the 43rd round, and I don't think a Rocky starter has been taken yet.
That's probably right. I mean, Chase Dollander is, a former, top prospect, a 9th overall pick. He is a guy that I would be interested in watching, but drafting, no.
Right. All right. Ruben, any thoughts on Moniak before we go on?
Yeah, he's one of the weird ones that actually lowered his launch angle, and that actually helped him. But you mentioned already everything about the splits. I mean, he is right now, I think he is the fifth Rocky coming off the board, and he's going around pick 247. Yeah, but I mean, we always spoke out of splits, so I don't have anything else to add to that, except the fact that if you do need cheap power and you can manage your lineup every week and make sure he's on at home, then he's good to go.
Another Rocky, Willie Castro. I think it's a wonderful place for him to land for his fantasy value. He's going to have a 10-10 season again or more. He's uber useful because he's second base, third base, outfield eligible, the three harder positions to fill. Just useful, and he's going pretty cheap. He's going like 20th round on average, so you can almost get him in the 23rd round sometimes. Just a useful tool to fill in some stats. So to me, that's his use. He's not going to have tremendous upside, but for somebody who's good on the bench for short benches, sure. Justin?
I actually really like Willie Castro this
Okay.
year. This will be the first time in his career where he's entering a season as a full-time player. Yes, he did get full-time plate appearances in 2024, but that was mostly because the Twins couldn't stop getting hurt. And we saw him in 2023 steal 33 bases and 409 plate appearances. He still has that speed, and he's going to be like guaranteed everyday playing time. I think you could see like a 10-25 season, with like a 240 batting average, 250 batting average in Colorado that returns a lot of value, especially with a guy who, like you mentioned, is eligible just about everywhere. Second, third, and outfield. Going to be playing every day. You'd be one of the few, hitters on this team that's not platooned. I like Willie Castro a lot.
Yeah, I mean, there are some projection systems that have him as like a $10 player. He's got a positive 2.4 skew, so the ATC is saying there's upside to his average projection. I mean, I've drafted him in a bunch of leagues so far, so I think there's upside, and to me, they're so useful, just as a Swiss Army knife. Just from that alone, I'm willing to bump him up $1 or $2 and a round extra. But yeah, I agree. And ATC's at bats 463. It's probably on the low side, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think it is.
Okay, Ruvain, you agree?
And also, if you look at that lineup, they have a lot of speed in that lineup. The 6, 7, 8 hitters, according to Roster Resource, Brenton Doyle, Willie Castle, and Jake McCarthy. So I think that's what they're trying to build their team. They build their team around, speed. And they used to be all power. Now it looks like they're trying to go around speed a little bit, which is very interesting because you'd think they're in Colorado, they go for power, but I guess that's where they're going. And the fact that he did steal 30 bases when he did play full time, I guess that's his ceiling. So if you can get a guy for $5-6 or wherever the pick he's going, I think I would take that, especially because of the just the eligibility at second, third, outfield. You can, like you said, the Swiss Army knife, put him anywhere.
A lot of excitement going to Coors Field. I mean, there's just a lot of stealing, a lot of homers, a lot of hitting, no matter who you are. My wife has her uncle and aunt live in Denver, and they go to games and they love it. The team is lousy, but they don't care. They love it. They still go. All right, last player, Brandon Marsh. Brandon Marsh is interesting. He's been a single-digit value player the last couple of years. He's almost free. He's going right around like the 24th round. So I've gotten him in reserve rounds. I've gotten him the last round. He's, again, one of these guys who doesn't have a lot of upside, but should amass some counting stats if he stays in the lineup. He's got a highish strikeout rate. So, he's got, again, he doesn't have a lot of upside, but I find him useful. He just, if you don't need any specific stat and you just want a base of something playable, take him in your bench round, stick him in. He's a viable outfielder, and play him. I know some people that say he's got upside. I know some people that say he stinks. ATC shows him as a $5 player going for nothing. So to me, that's value. Justin?
Oh, this one's a hard one for me because I don't know if there was anybody in the industry who was as big of a Brandon Marsh fan as I was when he was coming up from the minor leagues, and when he got traded over to Philadelphia. I was like, oh, here's a time like he's really going to turn into this player that I thought he really could be, which was going to be like a star. And the underlying numbers have like always been pretty decent. He's just never been able to put it all together. Now they like him as a defender. And so I think he is going to play pretty regularly, mostly on the strong side of a platoon. But I don't know. I think this is going to be one of those guys that ends up being being more of like just hey, he was a fine player, as opposed to ever really being a massive producer for fantasy.
Yeah, to me, this is, if you're in a mono league, this is a great player because he's going to be worth, he's going to go for $5 or whatever it is, and you want those accumulators there. If you're in a 10-team league, there's just no upside, you can't take him. 15-team league, he's like borderline. He's useful.
I mean, he's never played more than 135 games with the Phillies, and they have a top prospect, Justin Crawford, knocking on the door as a speedster, who we may lose at bats to later in the year. So I'm not a big fan of that.
I think they're planning on playing both of them together. That Marsh is going to be in left field. Now that they've gotten rid of Castellanos, like Marsh will be on the strong side of the platoon in left, and Crawford will be on the strong side of the platoon in center.
Really?
That was so unceremonious of Philly, and they've been sort of saying the whole offseason, yeah, we're going to cut you, yeah, we're going to cut you, yeah, we're going to cut you, and they finally did.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's with San Diego. Do you like that landing, by the way?
I really thought he should have gone to Houston. Houston's like in dire need of an outfielder. And I don't know what they're really planning on doing there. Especially with Jordan Alvarez, like being just the everyday DH. They're not going to let Jordan Alvarez play in the outfield anymore. Like right now, they are projected to have Zach Cole and Joey Loperfido in the corners. Like that doesn't feel like a Houston type team. So I really thought Castellanos should have gone there. They clearly weren't interested, because I think he would have taken that, because in San Diego, I think Castellanos is like kind of projected to be a bench bat. And I don't really know where he kind of fits in lineup. They signed Miguel Andujar this offseason to kind of be the everyday DH. So I guess Castellanos is going to be on the short side of the platoon with Gavin Sheets and play some first base and some outfield.
Yeah.
And that's what doesn't seem like a great landing spot for him.
Do they allow beer in the clubhouse at San Diego?
Maybe that was it. Maybe he was like, what? I can at least walk to the beach from the park. And that was what mattered to him.
A little story about the beer. I used to work for a company, and I used to work with a woman whose husband was the Red Sox clubhouse manager. I don't want to say who the name is, but it was a clubhouse manager for the Red Sox, and I literally worked with the wife. I went to her with games. Like I would go to games with her when I was in Boston, and I would literally sit next to players' wives. Like she's like, oh, that's Euclid's wife, that's Pedroia's girlfriend, or whatever, So that was kind of fun. She told me when Bobby Valentine was hired, if you remember that year. And I remember she calls me up on the phone. Ariel, no beer in the clubhouse? No beer in the clubhouse? At the Red Sox? They're going to hate him. And and it was so true.
Yeah, I guess Castellanos said to the Phillies, hold my beer, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
That was it.
All right. Justin, any other outfielders that you're interested in lower down, maybe some shots that you're willing to take deep? Anybody?
Oh, I mean, like I said, this is a really, really deep position. It's not like deep with talent, but it is deep. I just can't seem to quit Lars Nootbaar. Like, and it does feel like maybe this, a year in which the Cardinals are not going to be very good, that they're going to give him kind of full run to hit towards the top of that lineup and play every single day. So he's a guy that I've been consistently, taking shots on.
We just drafted him as Mr. Irrelevant in our auction yesterday.
I think like this is like a post type sleeper type of guy that I just find really, really interesting. Isaac Collins played really well in Milwaukee. He's now moving to Kansas City, where I think he's been kind of an afterthought in drafts. And so I'm kind of interested in that dart throw. Then, gosh, Jake McCarthy, we mentioned he got signed in Colorado. I think he's
on my list here.
Yep. This is a guy that I know you and I both have felt has been undervalued and just quite hasn't worked out the way we've wanted in the past. And like, hey, could he make it? Could he figure it out in Colorado, which is such a great place to hit? So he's another guy that I'm super interested in kind of taking a gamble on. And then like my boy Colton Cowser, he needs to stay on the field. But he's a really, really good defender, a premium defender, which will give him the opportunity to play every day when he is healthy, in spite of some platoon struggles that he can have. And I just think there is like real upside potential in his bat. And so he's just one of those guys I don't know if I can quit yet.
These are great names. Ruvain, anybody to add?
Yeah, I'm gonna add a couple. Jake Mangum, he stole 27 bases last year, and he's on the Pirates bench. So if Brian Reynolds doesn't do well, I can see him getting some playing time, and he's a good stolen base, excellent stolen base source. If I would think so. And two prospects who are probably going to get playing time, and if you want to take a flyer on them, I think those are the guys to look at. Owen Cassie, he went to Miami. He was one of their the Cubs' top prospects. He came over in the Edward Cabrera trade. I think if he gets playing time and he gets comfortable, he's a guy to watch because Miami's just going to let him play. And another guy, Carson Benj. I know I spoke to you, Ira, about this a lot. Every time we're at the end of a draft, I say I want to get Carson Benj. I want to get Carson Benj, and he always goes like 5 or 6 picks before we get to him. He's a guy. If he looks like he may be the starting right fielder. And I think they were going to give him a big enough leash that if he plays well, he's going to play every day. If not, they're going to send him down to the minors and get him back up because he rocketed up the minor league system last year. I think he started in single A last year and he ended up in triple A, and they were actually thinking about bringing up at the end of the year. So I think those are 3 guys to watch.
I just feel like it's a hedge not to actually draft Mets who are up-and-coming players because if they stink, at least they don't hurt your roster. And if they're great, all right, we didn't draft them, but let's go Mets,
Can I throw out one more
yes.
name real quick?
Yes, Justin, yes.
All right. So a guy that I was all over last year that didn't work. It absolutely didn't work. He got hurt. He didn't play well when he was on the field. But we're talking about a guy that, like, why are you drafting Chandler Simpson, inside the top 200 picks? When you can take Jacob Young, who's going to be a player playing every day in a pretty good Nationals lineup in center field and has like 40 stolen base upside, going at pick 671 right now.
I just drafted him in the DC.
673 actually in NFBC Draft Champions. Like, he's a really good defender. He's gonna play every day, and he has a lot of speed upside. I mean, if you're like looking for speed really late in a draft, Jacob Young is the guy that I want on my roster.
Yep, I was going to mention him. I just took him in like round 43 or so of my DC.
That's a steal.
Yes, no pun intended, right?
Yeah, no pun intended. Yeah.
I'll just throw out 3 other names. Jesus Sanchez. I like where he got traded. I think that really benefits his value. Brooks Baldwin, good up-and-coming guy for deep leagues, you never know. And Cody Clemens, we've mentioned him before, but if you need some late power, he's also eligible at other positions, so Cody Clemens is interesting. Ruvain, injury report, what say you?
All right, we'll start with Corbin Carroll, who had surgery for a fractured hamate bone. A day after surgery, he was in Diamondbacks spring training camp, and he was actually working in the weight room and working on legs and everything like that. He's got a cast on his right hand. They do hope for him to be back by opening day. We'll see what happens. Lawrence Butler took part in live batting practice and a full squad workout this week already. He's finally able to do that. I mean, he had surgery for his torn patellar tendon for his right knee and got a PRP injection for his left knee. So they said he had a normal, quote unquote, normal offseason, as normal as having surgery and injection in both knees can be. And they hoped for him to be ready for opening day, while Tommy Edman has already been ruled out for opening day due to a nagging ankle injury. Anthony Santander, I don't think he should be drafted in any leagues whatsoever. He had surgery, or is going to have surgery to repair a left labral tear in his shoulder. He is going to be out for a while. They said 5 to 6 months. You saw how long it took for him to get back last year. It doesn't seem like he heals that quickly. I don't know if that just may just the way I'm looking at it, but I don't see any reason for him to be drafted any reason. Deeper guy, Tyler Freeman. He's been slowed already in Rockies camp due to back soreness. He got an injection ready for that, so just keep an eye on that if you're thinking about drafting him. And you mentioned Lars Nootbaar, so I'll end with Lars Nootbaar. He had surgery to fix tooth deformities in his heels. He's been running. He's been using an altered gravity treadmill. I know we all have these in our basement. An altered gravity treadmill, and he's not at camp yet because the Cardinals have not delivered that treadmill to their facility. Think about that. They're not sure whether or not he'll be ready for opening day, but there is a possibility that Nootbaar will be ready for opening day, but there's also about a 30% chance he won't be ready for opening day.
We'll get some at bats. They're probably going to bat in the top of the order, though.
Yes, he would. Yes, he would.
All right. Well, Justin, thank you so much for joining the show and taking us through the outfield player pool. It's the biggest one, so thank you. And why don't you just tell the audience where they can see you, read you, and all things Justin Mason?
Yeah, you can hear me on the Sleeper in the Bus podcast, which is a Fangraphs production, the Friends of Fantasy Benefits podcast, and then you can read my written work at Fangraphs and at Fantasy Pros.
By the way, do you know who the original two hosts of the Sleeper in the Bus podcast were?
I believe it was Mike Podhorzer, and it wasn't Eno. There was someone before Eno.
No, it was Eno. Eno and Mike.
Oh, okay. There was
Yes.
also, wasn't like Chris Mitchell or somebody I think was on it at one point. I could be wrong.
Maybe.
But I love Pod. Pod's buddy of ours. Obviously, we love Eno too, another buddy of ours. So I'm just grateful to be able to carry on their legacies.
I used to go for lunch with Pod a lot. He used to work like 2 blocks from my office in the city.
Super good dude. One of the first people I ever met in the industry when I first went to Tot Wars, and just a super awesome dude.
He's a good guy, and he was the original host with Eno of Sleeper in the Bust. And well, you've already been podcast of the year, and so good luck. I think they announced. I think it's middle of next week they announced the award.
Oh.
So good luck.
Oh, sweet! I didn't even
February
even know what it was.
25th, a Wednesday.
I happened to be in a work meeting when they announced the nominations, and so I got a bunch of text messages all of a sudden. I was like, "What is happening?" And was very pleasantly surprised to get a couple nominations this year.
There you go. All right, Ruvain, what's up? Tell us what's going on with you.
You can follow me on Twitter, X, at MLB Injury Guru, where I'm tweeting out injury updates as they come. Pitchers, catchers, they're already there. So when players start to report, you'll find out more injuries, and I'll be sending them out. You can also catch my writing over at Rotoballer.
You know, my wife was down in spring training yesterday with the Mets. She actually saw Brett Beatty take first base grounders. He might be playing there.
Oh, God. Okay.
Good
Better
stuff.
defense, right? We want better defense. Let's get players who never played the position before, like a first and third baseman. That should go perfectly fine.
Well, somebody's got to play first base there after Alonso. Well, anyways, I'm Ariel Cohen. Twitter, X at ATCNY. I'm at Fangraphs. I'm at Rotoballer. ATC projections are up all over the place. Fangraphs, Yahoo, RotoWire, Rotoballer, you name it. So check them out. Once again, thank you so much for listening to the show. I apologize for my slightly raspy voice. Believe it or not, this is so much better than it was 4 days ago. So I thought it was good enough for you guys to listen to somewhat. And thank you for making it the whole way and listening. And hopefully next time I will be without rasp. Once again, thank you so much to Justin Mason for joining the show today. And from all of us here at Beat the Shift, we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Beat the Shift podcast presented by Fangraphs. Follow us on Twitter at beat_shift_pod.